and welcome to my knitting and creative podcast. My name on Instagram is Orchid's Heart and I am in Birmingham, England. This is probably the 5th time I've started this because things keep coming out wrong. So I'm sorry if I say something a bit garbled because I think this is going to have to be the last take. It's New Year's Eve. I was going to do another episode a bit like my last festive episode with some festive-y things because I had all these intentions of doing lots of wonderful crafty things. I have done some, but I've not really filmed any of it because the days are so short. It's been because I've been a bit slower over the last few days, really trying to enjoy the break. Sometimes it takes me a bit of a while to get going, and I have to be honest, some of it I was doing in my pyjamas, looking a bit scruffy. Didn't necessarily want you guys to see that. So yes, I think today is going to be a slightly short episode with no editing, so I'm just going to upload it. So it might come up on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. So Happy New Year. And yeah, I'm just going to take this one easy because in about a week and a half we are going away for a long weekend for my birthday in Wales to stay in a cabin. Not Wales, we normally go to Wales, to the Peak District. And I will take lots of clips then and share that with you instead in the next episode. So if you hear any crackling, I do have my wood burner going in the corner, so I'm actually also quite warm. I want to show you my finished object on, and I've got a really boring t-shirt on underneath, so I'm not going to take it off, I'm going to persevere. So yes, what did I say in my previous waffle and my other introductions that I was going to share? I'm not sure anything of any great consequences that's worth sharing, to be honest, so we'll just carry on. So my finished object I'm wearing is my Alaska sweater, which at the moment you can't see anything of really, but I'll stand up in a second. It's a raglan top-down construction and you do the neckbands last. And I knit mine in Fibre Tales Gotland Blend DK. I absolutely love Gotland. I guess it's a long wool sheep breed because it usually is quite a hairy yarn, but I find it quite soft and snuggly. Probably would be itchy for some people, but whereas I do find Let Lopi maybe a little bit itchy, this feels quite soft to me, like a soft itchy, if that means anything. Like soft rustic, I don't know. I absolutely love Gotland. So this was from last year's update that she did, not her most recent one. I think her most recent one was more of a 4-ply, whereas this was like a light DK. And I bought 3 skeins of the grey and 1 of the charcoal. And I think I have about half a skein of each left. So I'm kind of contemplating what to make with it because it's probably not something I want on my forehead or neck particularly. I am sort of collecting some DK-ish bits of nice yarn in kind of natural earthy colours. So it might be that I do a DK Vertices Unite or something at some point, which is like quite a crazy colourful pattern by Stephen West that sort of plays with shapes and stripes. So maybe I would do that if I have enough. I could go up a needle size, maybe knit the smaller one. And maybe it'll come out quite big. I don't know. We'll see. But so this has colour work along the bottom and then along the cuffs. And I started knitting this before I went on my big holiday road trip to America because, as you can see, there's a lot of plain knitting. So I did a lot of the body whilst we're on holiday and then came back and did the sleeves and the colour work and the colour work on the bottom. The only modification I made was that I used a technique called ladderback jacquard, which is these sort of columns you can see here, which, stray end, which is basically you do some extra purl stitches in like a layer behind the colour work where you have long floats, so that's where there's those big grey gaps. And it means that you don't have to carry yarns and twist them, and it just makes it stay stretchy rather than getting a bit taut. I really enjoy colour work, but I hate doing the carrying the yarns and twisting because I feel like the balls of yarn always get quite twisted and in a mess, and it annoys me. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that technique. The only thing is I sort of closed off my columns of ladder back, and then really I think there were points down here where I could have benefited from using them still anyway, so that was a bit of a learning curve, but it was surprisingly a really easy technique. So if you've heard Heather and Hops talking about it and thought, oh, I'd like to give that a go, but like me you get a bit stressed about introducing new knitting techniques into something because you just want to do something easy and straightforward and not have to worry about it, it was actually quite easy, so definitely do have a go and have a look. But yeah, I don't think I have much else to say about this. I either knit the smallest size or the second smallest, I'm not sure, but I wanted something quite fitted and a bit lighter because a lot of my jumpers are quite thick and hairy, and whereas this is hairy, it's definitely more of a spring or autumn weight piece, I think. However, with the wood burner going in here, it does suit me quite well. So yes, did I say what the pattern was? I've done this start so many times, I'm not sure. It's the Alaska pullover or sweater. I get a bit muddled with these terms because in Britain we say jumper, and I'm pretty sure in America a jumper is something different. So I would say Alaska jumper, but I'm pretty sure that's not what it's called. It'll be sweater or pullover or something like that. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it. The only other modification I made is if it asked for a tubular bind off or anything like that, I didn't do that. I do something that Andrew Mary suggested once. I do a normal rib bind off, but I go up a few needle sizes to do it, and mostly it works out okay. I think you can see that maybe it's a little bit untidy, but honestly in real life that's where the join is. In real life you can't tell and it's neat enough, and the hairiness kind of hides any slight untidiness. Usually it does come out very tidy. I probably went up one needle size too many, and that's why it's a bit untidy. I didn't want to rip it out though. So yeah, that's my Alaska sweater, whatever descriptive word she uses to describe it. Can't remember the name of the designer. I think it's something French. Maybe it's a Canadian jumper. I'm not sure, but it will be in the notes below. I really should have got a glass of water in here. I didn't think it was going to take me that long to film this, but having started 3 times, 4 times already, I'm already on 4 times whatever this says. So it is going to take me an hour after all, but that's fine. So my first whip, I think I have 3 whips to share today. I'm not going to share my Sophie scarf that I'm knitting because I've made 0 progress on it. I got really bored. So maybe that will be finished next time, maybe not, we'll see. But my first new whip, because I think all my whips are new, is my Christmas socks. So last year I knit myself some Christmas socks and I finished them on Christmas Eve because I wanted to wear them on Christmas Day. This year I decided I wasn't going to do that. I was going to knit them over the period of Christmas. And because they were colour work, and I was pretty sure that my partner was going to give me the little Chiago, how do you say it? In fact, I've got them right here. The short circular set. Is it actually in here? Yes, it is. So these. As I was pretty sure he was going to give me these for Christmas, I thought I will start the colour work on Christmas Day with them. Something went wrong with my train of thought. I was then like, but I have knit loads of colour work socks before on 2mm needles. I've done the cuff, the size I normally would on 2mm needles, which is about 60 to 64 stitches. I then increased to the larger size the colour work sock offers, in this case 72 stitches, and knit the colour work for the larger size, then decrease back down again to my size and carry on. So I thought, I'll start the colour work. I'll do some on Christmas Eve. Why not? So I spent all Christmas Eve knitting the colour work on my sock. I did the first inch of the colour work and I tried it on. I was good. It went over my heel and I was like, I'll just keep knitting. And then I finished the colour work I did half of the heel, and then thought, oh, I'll try them on again. There was no way that was getting on my foot. I was devastated. I had been knitting all day on these socks, and I had to rip it all out. And I was like, this really serves me right, because I specifically chose this pattern thinking I would use my Christmas present, and I went ahead and did it anyway. So annoyed. So I thought, right, I was really, really annoyed, but I thought equally it was just one day worth of knitting. Yes, it was the whole day, so it was hours and hours of time, but you know, nobody does anything productive on Christmas Eve, so I was just going to put it out of my mind and do it again on Christmas Day, which I did. And they fit this time, so yes. So it is the, I have no idea how to say it, Taiga, I'll link it below, sock pattern by Larkspur Knits, and it has these gorgeous trees on. Now I think the problem is it gets to a point where it's 1 by 1 colour work down here, and it was that didn't stretch very much, and so that didn't go over my foot. So the colour work on these are knit on 2.25. This is knit on 2.25, and then from the heel flap down I went back to 2mm. The cuff is on 2mm, but this is 72 stitches on the colour work, and I decreased down on the gusset. So normally I would decrease down after the colour work, and so my socks sometimes get a bit of a balloon effect when laid out flat, but when they're on you can't tell. But I thought I would just do extra decreases on the gusset, so my gusset maybe is a bit longer than it normally is, and the foot is my standard 64 stitches around. So it is almost finished. I've just got to do the toe, which I am going to do in this burgundy colour. Not the green, because the green is probably my favourite part of the sock set, and even though I'd love to do the toe in that colour, I think that'd be really pretty, no one ever sees the toe, so I'm going to save it, because I do like the burgundy, but not as much as this. So this is a sock set that I bought when I was on holiday by Grenouille Fibre. So it is called the Snowdrift sock set. So I decided it was perfect for my Christmas socks. And this is the sock set. So the other thing was, before I did the thing where I knit the sock too small, I did actually knit the first 4 rows of colour work using the main skein and this, and you could not see the trees. If you can see here, there's quite a lot of paler bits, like here, that's almost white, and there are specks of burgundy and stuff in here, and there's quite a lot of bluey green and burgundy and stuff in here. So I guess I didn't really realise that she's done it on purpose, where the colours in here are also in here so that they go. And this did look really gorgeous knitted up, but it just, with such like fine colour work, it didn't show up at all. So I had to rip that 5 rows out and start again. Luckily I realised this before we went away, and so I grabbed from my stash this sock yarn, which is very slightly speckled but nowhere near as much, by Nervus Fibre, who's a dye based in Glasgow, and this is the colourway Haar. Maybe I'm saying that wrong, but it's spelled H-A-A-R, and it's a very, very delicately speckled yarn, and I used this for the moons in my moon socks, knowing full well that I would use the yarn for something else. I didn't buy it for that, I bought it because I really liked it, and I think it was the first update she did and I wanted to support her. And so actually it worked out perfectly, because it is quite similar, just a lot less intense and maybe a bit warmer. So I think with this I need to not do colour work socks, or something with a much bolder pattern, or some plain textured socks, or some stripy socks. Like I do even think with some minis, just some stripy socks would be really lovely, or even just some plain with contrast heels and toes would be nice. Yeah, so Probably I'll end up using most of this, almost all of this in this pair, but I do have other sock yarns I could use for stripes or contrasts and stuff like that. So yeah, and this is a lovely yarn too. I think it is a bit finer. I think it might have 420 meters per 100 grams, but you know, the colour work came out fine. I think it's really pretty. I love it. So this is the first one, just got the toe to go, and then I am doing my second one. Just pop that away. Also, I think the fire might be going out, so just give me 1 second. So my second whip. Ooh, hit myself in the face. Is the Unarmoured Defense Cowl by Heather and Hops Cat Weaver, and I have done the fold over neck, and I'm now knitting the front panel. So it's kind of like a cowl with a bit of a body. So it's a cowl that has like a rectangle down the front and a rectangle down the back. So kind of a vest with no sides. And so I have seen, so Kat made one of these, obviously it's her pattern, and she was wearing it with a knitted cardigan. Hers was like a bright, like sort of pinky red colour. She was wearing it with like a dark Plutolope cardigan and a hat, and she looked so cosy and warm. And I was like, I think I really want that. But I wasn't sure whether it's something I would actually wear that much. So I have to admit, I was really like, what should I knit it with? Because I'd like to knit one. She looks really good in it. Maybe it would be quite practical. I don't really want to knit it in something special in case I don't actually end up wearing it. I don't actually want to buy any more yarn because I'm really trying not to buy yarn. I want to use what I've got because I've got too much. Blah, 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 blah. It can't be anything too itchy because it'll be on my bare neck, and I want it to be cozy. It has to be in something that will actually be warm because that's the point. Something that's going to go with a lot of my clothes. Do I have anything in my stash that fits all that criteria? Do I need to buy a new yarn? I really psyched myself out. Oh, because she also knit the Storm Hood by Albiona McLaughlin. I think in the same yarn, possibly, so it looked really all the same colour, and so they went really well together. So she had like a little hood with her cowl and her cardigan, and it just looked really cosy. And so I was like, I want mine to go together, and I want to look like Kat basically. And I didn't really have anything in my stash, and so I nearly ordered more yarn, and then I thought, this is really silly. When I was on holiday, I did buy 2 DK skeins of this yarn in Port Fibre. I'm not really sure what it is. It's quite a rustic yarn, and it's in like a brown grey. So this is grey, this is like a brown warm grey. And so I was like, do I want to knit this cowl, which is something a shape or a garment I've never knit before, in a special yarn, because I've only got 2 skeins of this. What happens if I never wear it and it's a waste of my special yarn? And then I decided, get over it. It's 2 skeins of DK yarn. If you don't wear it that much, or you don't wear it at all, you can rip it out and make something else with it. If you do wear it a lot, then maybe it's a nice use of the 2 skeins of special yarn. I am thinking it might actually be incredibly practical for me to wear under my raincoat cycling to work, because I get really cold. And scarves and things aren't always the best when you're cycling, especially like long shawls, like if they get untied or whatever. So I think this might actually be really perfect for wearing to work. So yes, there we go. Do I have anything to say about it? I'm not sure. It's quite cleverly designed. I did get really bored knitting this rib neck. but that's me. I do get bored knitting rib. And then you do some increases on the front under here and the back. And so the patterning, the texture, there is a little bit of purling for the equivalent of this much, because this is the back, this is on hold. There is a little bit of purling, but you then essentially end up knitting it inside out, but you're not, because it's flat, so it's not really inside out. And so there's then no purling at all. So she's actually been quite clever about it. So it's all just knitting now. So it's almost mindless knitting, but not quite, because if I really pay no attention at all, I will mess up the pattern. So I am having to do it. I can't take it out to the pub or anything, I don't think, unless I'm going to completely ignore my partner. But yeah, so I'm enjoying that. And then this is already 21 minutes. Like, that's impressive, and I didn't think this was going to be very long. Always the way. And then I do have another whip to show you, but it's hilariously small. But I'm going to share it anyway. Can you guess what this is? If I was you, I'd be like, no, it looks like nothing. But I am going to share because I do have the swatch. So this yarn is Gilliatt by Durham Natura, and in the colourway Sel Poivre, which would be, no, Poivre Blanc, white pepper. I think white pepper. Yeah. And this is the swatch. This is the swatch. This is, I think, 5.5, and this is 5 millimeters. And this is half fisherman's rib, which I've never done before, so I was also doing this to kind of learn half fisherman's rib. Also really easy if you've never tried it before. When I knit this up, it was really, really gappy, like really gappy. And then I blocked it and dried it on the radiator, and no joke, within 20 minutes, it had completely puffed up and filled gaps. This yarn is so stretchy and bouncy, and it's not itchy at all. It's really soft. I really like it. So I'm knitting I will be knitting a half fisherman's rib, all over textured V-neck cardigan. And it is knit flat, which isn't something I normally do, but I think the nature of half fisherman's rib is that you actually end up, when you're knitting flat, doing more knitting than purling anyway. And yeah, this yarn is just really lovely to knit with, but the construction's really weird. And the reason why I've stopped is because I'm not convinced. This is the back of the neckband. So you start, so it's like here. And then I've got to pick up 45 stitches on here. And so I'm not convinced this is A, long enough, B, like too wide for a button band for me. I might drop 2 stitches and do it again. And C, I need some DPNs in 4 millimeters, I think, because let me start that again. I had to size down needle sizes on my swatch to get what was recommended. But for the button band, you knit it at the same time on smaller size needles as the rest of the cardigan. So she uses DPNs and you just have them hanging off. And then when you get to that bit, you use the DPNs and then you knit back on your ordinary needles. I sound like I don't understand because I don't, because I haven't done it yet. And I don't have any 4mm DPNs, but I do have 4.5, which is what was recommended. So part of me is considering starting again with the recommended needles, because my gauge does actually look fine on the recommended needles, but the stitches came out too many. But I was going to knit the second size, and I don't mind if this comes out a bit big. So I am thinking that maybe I should knit the smallest size on the recommended needles, and then hopefully it will come out a bit big. But maybe that's a gamble. I could also knit the second size on the recommended needles and it'd just be slightly bigger again, which I don't really mind because I did want this to be oversized and the pattern isn't actually that oversized. It's the Seasons cardigan by Ozetta. And it's a very strange construction, but I feel like once I get going, once I get in the rhythm, because the yarn is really nice and it's quite, you know, it's 5mm or 5.5, it's quite a chunky knit, I think it'll be really quick. And because the yarn was so bouncy and so easy to knit with, it didn't take me very long to knit this. And normally swatches take me forever because I get bored. So yeah, I don't know whether this will be my next big project. I'm kind of trying to finish the cowl first, and before I go away I would like to have done the colour work on my sock, so I've got a fairly easy knit in the bag. But I think I need something else fairly straightforward to take with me whilst we're away, and I don't know what that's going to be. So maybe I will get a bit further with this, but I did, thanks to a friend, order some yarn the other day because she told me she was joining up to knit along to knit the East Wind by Emily Foden of Viola Yarns. And this is a knit that's been on my list in my queue for a really long time. It's a knitted jacket, also because of Heather and Hops and because hers is really lovely. And so my friend told me she was joining a knit along and she was going to cast it on, and I was like, I want to too. But I don't have any yarn for it, so I was going to do it next autumn once I've knit through several of my other coming up garment projects, because I have got some really beautiful yarn for about 4 or 5 shawls and a couple of jumpers, so I don't need to buy any big project yarn purchases. But I was jealous and I didn't want her to knit it and me not to, so sorry. The friend realised really quickly and was like, you've got knitting FOMO, and I was like, yes I do have knitting FOMO. So I bought Manchalope by Wool Dreamers. Under normal circumstances it would have arrived by now, but Royal Mail's a mess because of all the striking, so it hasn't arrived, but that's okay because I have plenty on the go. But maybe if that isn't too complicated a knit and it's knit in panels, maybe I'll be able to take some of that away with me. However, it is unspun yarn, so maybe not. We shall see. But that's kind of where I'm at. I am thinking about jumping on the, not being very original at the moment, I am thinking about jumping on the knitted hot water bottle trend. I have some leftover yarn by Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co in DK that's got slight flecks in it, you can see just about, and I knit my nurtured pullover in this, and I've got a couple of these small balls left, so I thought I might knit myself a hot water bottle cover out of this, because to be honest, let's see, I think one of the other ones has got some stronger flecks. These flecks do fade quite a lot in the light, so this is stronger because it's been in a cupboard. And so I was going to knit a colourwork hat or something with my leftovers and this, but this yarn used to be purple and it's changed colour. That's my fault, I dyed that grey one, but it is Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co yarn. It was one I thrifted, but it was a really pale colour that I wasn't that keen on. It was like the same colour as my skin. So I was going to knit something colourwork with the two of these because there is quite a bit in here. But I think because of the nature of these flecks and my yarn might bleed because I can't remember what I did to that yarn, I think I'm going to knit a textured hot water bottle cover because maybe it wouldn't be out in the light so much and I might get to enjoy these colours longer. And then if it ever does get to a point where it completely fades, I could, if it's only this yarn, I could naturally dye the whole thing. Equally, there is quite a lot there, so maybe it's a waste. I think this is easily over 100 grams. So, I don't know, let me know what you think. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, because together that is 200 grams, at least. So, I don't know. But equally, it has just been sat in my stash for a year now, maybe longer, maybe 2 years. So I should use it and knit something beautiful. And hot water bottles are something I use quite a lot. So anyway, I think that's it. I'm looking around. Was there anything else I wanted to share with you? I don't think there is. I really need a cup of tea. No, I think that's it. So a short and sweet episode for you. Happy New Year. I am going to go make a cup of tea, and I have started, or I've picked up again, my really big quilt project, which I started early this year. My original intention was that I'd be done by now, and it would be like a 2022 quilt. But I kind of abandoned it about halfway through this year. Like loads of stuff just happened, did quite a bit of travelling, and I kind of hit a bit of a stumbling point where I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. This isn't turning out how I thought it would. Quilts are massive and scary, and this is a really big project. It's going to be wonky, because everything I make is wonky. Am I doing the right thing? Also, batting is expensive. I wanted to use real wool batting, because the last quilt I made, I used synthetic, or no, cotton batting. It was natural, but it was cotton. And it's not very warm. So I wanted this one to be warmer. So when my mother-in-law asked what I wanted for Christmas, I say mother-in-law, we're not married, but basically mother-in-law asked what I wanted for Christmas. I said, please could I have that wool batting? That's what I would really like. Thank you. Not because it was expensive, but because that's kind of ballpark what she would normally spend on a Christmas present for us. And she does like to give me things that are creative for my creative hobbies. She's quite a creative person herself, so she really values that. And I think she really liked the idea that that would be on our bed. She'd be a part of that quilt, and it'd be keeping us, me and her child, warm and cosy. And so she did give me that. And I asked for the queen size because I thought that's what I would need to cover our bed. I think it might be, I opened it up and I was so overwhelmed by the size of this piece of batting. I was like, I'm never going to make enough quilt squares to cover this. So I kind of panicked and put it back in the bag. I was like, oh God, what have I done? And then the partner found some like wool blend fabrics the other week, and one piece is in a really nice like ochre colour. And I had sort of looked at it and thought if it's the right size, I could use it for the back of the quilt. So I got that and put it on the bed, and it's just about big enough for a quilt. Like if you added a border around it, it would be the right size. So I was like, right, I'm going to use this as my size goal because it does cover the top of the bed and a little bit more. But it's not as big as the piece of batting that I was given, which I think like comes down the side of the bed and all the rest of it. So I don't think there's enough in there for me to do a double layer of this size, which would be really nice and cozy. But I can definitely use the leftovers for something else, you know, project bags or other things, or a smaller quilt as a gift or something like that. You know, and I can always like piece bits together inside and stitch them together and stuff, so that's not a problem. So I'm going to do that, and I feel a little bit better now. And I worked it out. I need 124 or 122 squares. And the other thing, the way that I've been doing it was a bit overwhelming with colours and patterns because I'd gone a bit wild. So I decided half my squares are going to be neutral, every other square will be neutral, and every other square will be patterned. And so I've got to do 62 patterned squares. So that is a lot, but it's not 120 something, so I can breathe. And so I worked out I need to cut something out like 400 plain triangles, 62 plain squares, and all the rest of it. So I've mapped it all out, I've calculated what I need, and I'm going to cut out all of the neutral stuff, and then I'm going to have that in like boxes or something. And then the colour pieces, I'm using leftover scraps from my clothes I've made, and that was the purpose, to use up some scraps, because I've got some really beautiful scraps. And those I will probably cut as I go and make a handful of squares with the neutral stuff as I go and kind of do it in batches. And then when I have all the squares, I can start assembling the quilt. I haven't yet fully decided how I'm going to quilt it. I think probably by hand, but I don't have a lot of patience, so maybe not. we shall see. I know people do send them off to be quilted, but that's like £100. I don't think I'm up for doing that. I think it's too much money. A lot of money's already gone into this, so I think I'd rather not do that. But we'll see. I might totally like be sick of it by that point, and it might be too big to handle. No, I'm not going to do that. That's silly. That'd be really indulgent. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. Happy New Year. I hope you've got loads of beautiful crafting happening at the moment, or you're having a rest. I think having a rest is really valid at the moment. Something I'm really trying to bear in mind more, that you don't have to be productive all the time, and that you can slow down a bit too. So it's a good thing to bear in mind. And if you do knit almost an entire sock that doesn't fit on your foot, it's not the end of the world. I'm still telling myself that. I could have knit the whole pair by now. No, it's fine. It's fine. All right, I'll talk to you next time. Bye.